in developing the insight into anatta, not self, one of the principal tools is anicca, impermanence or uncertainty. For example, in the Buddha's teaching to Meghiya, he said, when you reflect upon uncertainty, you develop the perception of uncertainty that leads to the insight into not self, into anatta. And when develops the insight into not self, that frees the heart from the conceit, I am, asmi mana, and that is nibbana here and now. So both in formal meditation and as we go about our ordinary everyday activities, developing the anicca sanya, the perception of uncertainty, impermanence, is a very valuable, potent way of keeping that perspective in tune with reality. When we say, yeah, I'm going to go home this evening, is that a sure thing? We have a plan to go to Yamunnagar tomorrow. Will we go? Not a sure thing. We have a plan. We know we have a plan. Will it happen? It's not a sure thing. It's anicca. When the mind makes a judgment, this is beautiful. Is that a sure thing? When the mind sees something as ugly, oh, that's awful. Is that a sure thing? Is that the whole story? Could that be the whole story? Just because it appears ugly to this mind, to somebody else, they might think beautiful. This is very, very common, very ordinary experience in the world. So to cultivate the anicca sanya is a way of keeping our views, our opinions, our habits of perception in perspective, our thoughts, our doubts. I'm an awful person. Is that a sure thing? I'm a really special person. Is that a sure thing? Our plans, our opinions, our moods, our judgments, beautiful and ugly. If we challenge those with mindfulness and wisdom, question those, then it enlivens, it strengthens the quality of clear seeing, seeing free from the biases of greed, hatred, delusion, fear. The heart can see clearly, can know clearly. Self-view is often fed by attachment to opinions, attachment to habits, attachment to just the customary patterns of thinking, expected values. So to question those with wisdom then helps to keep those in perspective. Our moods. I'm really happy. So, I'm really unhappy. So, and this isn't by way of a put down or a dismissal, but it's just recognizing this feeling of happiness is a mood. It arises and passes away. It doesn't have an owner. It's just this particular pattern in this moment. That's all. I'm really unhappy. So, it's a mood. That which knows unhappiness isn't unhappy. That which knows happiness isn't happy. Awareness, this quality of knowing, is free of those superficial tendencies. That which knows, as Ajahn would say, that which knows good and evil, that which is beyond good and evil, people don't talk about. That which knows the good is not good in ordinary superficial terms. That which knows evil or the unwholesome is not unwholesome. So both in the meditation and in life, in our workplace, with the family and traveling around, activity in the world, we can use this form of reflection, developing the anicca sanya, the perception of uncertainty. Just with these simple questions, if you have an opinion, is that so? You have a plan, is that so? You have a regret, is that so? You have something you're proud of, is that so? And then watch the effect that reflection has, how that changes the inner landscape. And the most simple of all, just to say, so, I think my life has really been a waste. So, I think I've really done something in the world. So, again, not using this as a dismissal or a rejection, but just noticing how the mind gives value, gives solidity to success and failure, worldly achievements, worldly problems. If that simple question, so, is put with wisdom, mindfulness, look at the effect of that. There's a relaxation in the heart, an ease. Doesn't mean all of our debts get paid, all the responsibilities go away, but there's a change of relationship to them. There's a change of attitudes. Attitude is everything. This simple kind of reflection is a skillful means, a powerful tool to let the view change from one that's self-centered, ego-centered, to one centered on Dhamma, on nature. It's drawing upon that intuition, that intuitive wisdom of the heart. You say, I really can't get on with my family. So, when we ask that question, so, something knows this is not the only time in human history, in the collection of families all around the world, the people have had difficulties. This is a shared issue. It's not just me. It's not just my family. This is a pattern of nature. It's not personal. It's just the way nature works. People don't acknowledge me for all that I do for them. So, I'm really proud of all that I've achieved. It makes me really happy. So, again, not using this as a put down or a dismissal, but just seeing how that simple reflection changes the perspective on our achievements, our resentments, our losses, what we're proud of, all these different aspects of our life. It puts them into a perspective of the natural order rather than me and mine. And when the heart is free of me and mine, as the Buddha said, that is Nibbana, here and now. That's the great peace. The heart free of the conceit of identity. we can have a final 45 minutes for questions and Dhamma discussion. So we'll aim to finish this 4:45 and have the final chanting and blessing to close things. But the next 45 minutes are open, so whatever people would like to ask about, please feel free. Yes. If you could wait for a microphone. Oh yeah, go ahead first in the corner. Yeah.
Practice, Ajahn, can you please provide more guidance on how to practice open awareness during walking meditation?
Do it. The action of walking in a limited area, then there's a minimum of choices needed. It's walking up and down, and so as quality of relaxing into the action of walking, and then you can use small verbal cues, just like to remind yourself, like to be open to everything, to be encouraging that quality of attending to the whole field of experience. If you notice that you're getting fixated on the end of your path or something in front of you, just to use a little verbal cue, like just be open to everything. Don't focus on one thing, just be open. And no more complicated than that, just encouraging that. The habit, in a way, it's getting used to the habits that we have. The attention, the eyes or the ears keep latching onto particular things. Just to say no, just stay open to the whole thing. And so that's one approach one can use. Also, as I've been saying during the day, just to recollect that the action of walking is being known in your mind. It's the experience of walking is put together from feeling, seeing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, and it's happening here. Just like this experience of this room and this conversation it's known within our minds. It's not saying that it doesn't exist, that it's all a dream, but it's known here in these minds, and so that. You can also use small verbal cues like this is the experience of the body walking. There's nobody going anywhere, something like that. Along those lines, this is patterns of perception arising and passing away in the mind. Many years ago, when I went on, I was planning to go on a long Tudong walk, a walk through England from our monastery in West Sussex down near the south coast up to a new branch monastery up near the Scottish border. And so I was quite revved up for this big adventure, and definitely thinking in terms of going places. And the morning that I left with my walking companion, Nick Scott, the layman, Nick Scott, Ajahn Sumedho was offering some reflections before we set off, and he said, actually, there's nobody going anywhere. There's just conditions of mind that are changing. And that was so helpful, because there's a lot of me going somewhere-ness over the following 3 months and 800 miles of walking. That was such a helpful perception as you're going through forests and over hills and through towns, and that this is the experience of walking, and it's always happening within this space of the mind. So walking meditation is very simple, very systematic, very plain. So it gives you that a very, supportive, ideal environment in which to cultivate that. The world is happening in the mind. And then but also, as I often emphasize, it's not just doing the practice, it's also acknowledging what the result of the practice is, the vimamsa piece. Seeing the world like this, seeing that this is the conditions of mind changing. What does that do? What's the effect of that? And just really feeling and knowing the way that changes the attitude and impacts the heart. And there's the quality of peacefulness, even as a lot of action is going on. We can still be very peaceful. There's another small example. So 25 years after we did that first walk, we did the first walk in 1983. And so Nick Scott and I had the idea to have a kind of anniversary, 25th anniversary, and revisit, quote unquote, the best bits of, of the original walk, and to catch up with some of the people that we met along the way and seeing how things had changed. And at a certain point, we'd arranged to meet somebody in the town of Swaffham in Norfolk. And we had been a bit slow getting up, breaking camp and getting going that morning. And we were in this village, and we realized, we're 12 miles from Swaffham, and it's already 9:30 in the morning. It's going to be difficult to make it to get to meet this person in time for the meal offering in Swaffham. And somebody in me said, "No, you can do that. It's 12 miles, 2.5 hours. Yeah, we can do that." And I just started walking. And so I was walking. We really had these 30, 40-pound packs, and just walking at speed along these roads. And it was extraordinarily peaceful, even though there was a lot of physical exertion. And unusually, I left Nick far behind. He's about the same size as Ajahn Jivakova, walks with usually the same kind of vigor. But I just decided, no, we can do it. We can. And I just, even though there's a lot of physical engagement and exertion going at 12 miles in 2.5 hours, it's my rough memory of it. Anyway, it was quick walking, but there was a quality of peacefulness as the country rolled by under my feet and around me. There's this walk, go. And so even in the midst of a lot of activity or very energetic activity, there can still be that peacefulness if the attitude is framed in that way. So as I was making that sort of that stretch of the walk, there was a quality of reminding myself, this is the perceptions of the mind of exertion happening, and it's like this. And then it sort of looked after itself, and we made it in good time. So, any other questions? Oh, there was this woman here with the black and red shirt. There we are.
Hello, sir. Sir, my question is, as you are guiding us the ways to achieve a peaceful life or to lead a peaceful life by living in a family, okay, or by living in a crowded cities like Delhi, how to get inner seclusion, you told us in previous sessions. So my question is, like, if it is possible to live a peaceful life by people around us through inner seclusion rather than physical seclusion, if not possible. So why one chooses the path like you have chosen, the life of a monk? Why not go with this life only, like we are living, if that seclusion is possible?
Well, it's we all make our own choices. I came across this way of life when I was 21, and I'd always liked living in the countryside. I was born on a farm, grew up in the countryside, and that way of life in the forest was available. And so I found myself enjoying that, appreciating that. So it's not out of aversion to living in a city. I've spent quite a lot of my monastic life living in cities. When we were starting the monastery in California, I would live in San Francisco for 3 or 4 months of the year, going on arms round through the town and being around and about in the city quite regularly. but each of us makes our own choices. And so I think if you find that you can find a genuine quality of peace in establishing that citta viveka in the city life, then very good, marvelous. If you find that it's more conducive, more beneficial for you and the people around you to be in a quieter place, then fine, make that choice. We all make our own choices. We all have our own things that influence our decisions. So I haven't chosen the way that I live out of a kind of going through a list and saying, well, I will choose this one rather than that one. It's been more circumstantial. But people who come and stay at Amaravati Monastery, often they say, this is a very busy place. There's 70 people live there, 70 or 80 people live there. And so it's not a cave in the hills. So it's like having a family of 70 people that I'm in the middle of. So I do like living in the forest in a little hut by myself, and I enjoy that and having an absence of duties. But the way I live right now, it's ended up with me being in a place with 70 other people. I'm on more than 20 committees. Seriously. So I live with a lot of minutes and agendas. And so I have a lot of worldly responsibilities. I'm the managing director of legally, I'm the managing director of the development company that looks after the reconstruction of my monastery. We're just finishing a £2.2 million project, and just started an £11 million project that I'm in charge of. So yeah, I'm a forest monk, but the city has come to me. Right. So, but I'm not complaining or making a thing of it. But it's just we work with the effects of the choices that we've made. And if I find that the way I'm living, where I'm living, having 70 people in my community, or having all these responsibilities, these 20 plus committees I'm on, all gets too much, then I can go off for a retreat someplace for some time. I do have a plan after this next project is completed to have a sabbatical. Just telling the universe that. I do have a plan to have a sabbatical. Hopefully that'll happen. But it's that quality of citta viveka I find is really essential in terms of being able to live with all of that, being at the center of people's attention, available to anybody and everybody every day. As this my how I live. So it's it is technically the life of a forest monk, but it's also there's a lot of engagement in there. There's quite a few people are a bit afraid of living in Amaravati because of all of the things. The size of the community and the amount of activity that goes on, but also it's a very beautiful place, very inspiring, because people really learn to work together and to be unselfish, and that having a large group of people, a lot of activity, can be a source of great benefit and great blessing. Yes, this gentleman at the back there. If you can wait for the microphone. Otherwise, people can't hear you.
Thank you.
You need to switch it on.
Thank you. So actually, in a lot of questions asked previously, there are a lot of things showing up, so everything is helpful. I want to particularly know, when you measure, if you do measure your spiritual progress, then do you do it by yourself, or you have someone to bounce off certain concerns with? And is there a milestone you finally, the final milestone, if there is any, are you kind of measuring yourself to? reaching there?
I don't measure. It doesn't really concern me very much. That's the style of approach of my teachers, that you try to find anything in Luang Por Chah, Luang Por Sumedho's writings about levels of realization. You really have to look to find anything. Neither my teachers just never made anything of that, and that. And when Ajahn Chah was asked, which is better, the path of the Arahant or the path of the Bodhisattva? He said, don't be an Arahant, don't be a Bodhisattva, don't be anything at all. If you're anything at all, you'll suffer. So, and that's right, because we create labels, we create measures and such, and then we attach to them. And so very, very rarely would Luang Por Chah ever speak in those kind of terms, because we get so competitive or achievement oriented, and so that and you can say, and there's really no such thing as an enlightened person. The enlightened mind knows personhood arising and passing away. So from the outside, someone might say, "Oh, there's an enlightened person," but from the inside, there's not a person that is being an enlightened being. It's one way of regarding it. So that. So our discipline, our rules make it is quite a serious offense, even if you have arrived at some kind of level of realization. For a monastic to state that, even if it's true to a layperson, it's an offense for us. So that's why in the Theravada tradition, it's almost never spoken about. And another way Ajahn Chah responded, he said, some people say he's an Arahant, he's an Arahant. And other people say he's not an Arahant, he's not an Arahant. He said, to me, this is just like the birds landing in the tree. Some of the birds say he's an Arahant, he's an Arahant. Some of the other birds say he's not an Arahant, he's not an Arahant. It's just the chattering of the birds. The tree is not bothered by that. This gentleman here, did you ever ask your second question?
Pranam, Ajahn. Could you please elaborate that while meditation, in the moments of pain and pleasure, so how should one apply both anatta and anicca in a balanced way? Because that experience is right here for me right now. So how should one apply?
Well, using simple verbal cues is very helpful. Like if you're experiencing physical pain, say, well, there's this pain, is it changing? Then the mind says, I am experiencing pain. What's the I am that is the experiencer? What is that me that owns this, that has this? What is that? Where is that? So using simple verbal cues like that, you're not looking for a conceptual answer, but rather challenging the habit of this pain is here, it's going to be here forever, or is it ever going to go away, or what's this leading to, or this is my pain and I'm feeling it. So it's turning the light back onto those assumptions about the solidity or the reality of that experience, the feeling of an ownership that this belongs to a me. This is what I have got, this painful feeling. So there's simple verbal cues or little questions just to sharpen the quality of wisdom. And when those kind of questions or statements are made, because rather than saying, who does this pain belong to, you can say, this is my pain. I am the owner of this. This belongs to me. Again, like I was saying earlier, if you inflate it rather than just try and push it away, I am the owner of this. This belongs to me. Again, that the mind that if you make that kind of statement with awareness, somebody knows that's ridiculous. What is it that's here that could really genuinely own anything? What can be owned and what is there that can own it? So you're tapping into, using those little verbal cues to tap into that intuitive wisdom. But it's not the verbal cues, they're like the utensils that you use to get the rice out of the bowl. It's a spoon. The important thing is the rice, not the spoon. But you need the spoon to get the rice out of the bowl onto your plate. So that the point is not just repeating those verbal cues, but the effect that the change of heart that they bring about. Oh, of course, there is this feeling, but how could it have an owner? How could it be me and mine? Aha. So the point of it is that change of heart, rather than not just the application of those cues. Go ahead, yes. Question number 2.
Ajahn, my question is it true that until we realize complete non-self, even which probably, if I'm correct, is the stage of Nibbana, even the wholesome deeds that we are doing on our daily lives, they have the roots of greed, hatred, and delusion? And if yes, how? And what we can do when we are doing those deeds to not amplify those hatred, greed, or delusion, but it leads to eradication of those?
I would say that wholesome deeds, they might have aspects of greed, hatred, and delusion woven in, but it's greed, hatred, and delusion also arise and pass away. They're not there all the time. They are anicca, dukkha, anatta also. So it can be that a wholesome deed, the wholesome action, is free of greed, hatred, and delusion. It can be grabbed hold of very quickly afterwards. Oh wow, that was a completely innocent and noble, selfless act. I really got it right there. So it was free of greed, hatred, and delusion, but then greed and delusion grabbed hold of it and made some mileage out of it. So I would say it's not always the case that, again, they might be contradicted by Abhidhamma, but none of my teachers have been Abhidhamma experts. But I would say from experience that our actions or our words can be completely free of greed, hatred, and delusion. But until there is full enlightenment, then they can be easily then sort of remembered with out of self-view and conceit that I remember I said this or I did this, and it's very common. Well, no, I mean somewhat common that a person will have a profound experience in meditation, absolutely genuine, sort of the sense of self falls away completely, and their experience of the present reality of Dhamma is totally unobstructed and valid, kind of a very sort of powerful, liberating experience. But then the conditions that support that then end, and then the thinking mind grabs hold of it, or the habits of self-view cluster around. They think, I haven't got a real great attainment. I'm really somebody. I must be a stream enterer at least, if not a once return or a non-returner. Maybe I'm an arahant. And so that even though that experience was valid in its own way, then it can be grasped hold of, and can be a source of delusion. And so I've known people who've, and in my own practice, I've done this myself, where you have some kind of very powerful experience, and then you just grasp it, and you live on the memory of it or the idea of it, and then you get yourself into all kinds of trouble on account of that. And sometimes leading to great depression, that someone's had a very powerful experience. They've seen, reality as it genuinely is, and then they've got to go back to work on Monday. Like, well, how do I deal with this? How can I make this meaningful again? And so, falling into intense depression. Using the capacity of wise reflection, yoniso manasikara, is really important. So if people ask what was Ajahn Chah's main meditation method, he had a huge variety of techniques that he taught, but one of the most prominent things was the skillful use of wise reflection, the mind that investigates, explores experience, and sees, challenges the assumptions. So yoniso manasikara, then it's very similar to Dhammavichaya, investigation of reality. So it's not just thinking, but using conceptual thought. And the yoniso manasikara, wise reflection, it's really to do with recognizing the patterns of how things work in the world. Like if you're a physicist or a chemist or an engineer or a musician, okay, how do these sounds work together? How do these chemicals work together? How do these objects work together? What's the relationship between them? What are the forces that operate? How do they affect each other? So yoniso manasikara is like that, recognizing the patterns of nature, how they work and how they affect each other. And that's tremendously important. So that actively, and sometimes people assume that any kind of conceptual thought is an intrusion upon meditation. But if you read the books of Ajahn Chah and his many teachings, over and over again, he's applying this investigative curiosity and challenging. And when people would come to him and say, "Oh, I've had this great meditation experience," and he would say, "Well, what are you doing with it? How can you let go of it? Can you not get inflated around that?" So, in terms of your question, the recognizing or using that capacity to investigate, if you've done something good and you feel very happy about it, then to explore. So, is the ego getting inflated about this? I did a kind act. There's a glow in the heart. Is it something to do with I and me and mine? No, it's just that's the cause. This is the effect. This is merit. This is the experience of punya. Something, an act of kindness and blessing, something that's a blessing and benefit of others is done. There's a brightness in the heart. That's joyful. That's liberating. If you say, "Oh, I've got more merit. I've really made some merit there," then, there's self-view has gathered around it. But seeing that the natural result of wholesome activity, kindly, unselfish action and speech, is that brightness of heart, is punya. Then, that, as the Buddha said, don't belittle punya. Don't look down on that. It's another word for happiness. And so, the more punya, the more blessings, that quality of brightness of heart is established, then that creates a foundation for concentration, for wisdom, for liberation. It's a skillful basis for the practice. So the Buddha made it quite clear: don't look down on meritorious acts, and if you do something that is very very generous or very grand, and you think, "Oh, I'm really glad I did that." And that just to be able to question, okay, am I getting inflated about that? Am I wanting people to know what I just did? And then, oh, where's that coming from? Just the readiness to explore that. It doesn't mean to say you shouldn't do good things because you might get inflated. It's like, I say, do the good things and deal with the inflation. Yeah, that sometimes people think, oh, anytime I'm kind or generous, I feel pleased with myself. Therefore, should I just be more selfish and just never help anyone? It's like, no, just still be generous and helpful, but just deal with the inflated feelings. Contemplate those inflated feelings that might arise. And so that would be my recommendation. Don't be afraid of goodness. Yeah, there we go.
So, Ajahn, during these discussions, during these 2 days, we have discussed about anicca, dukkha, and anatta repetitively. And last day, I picked up this book by Ajahn Sumedho downstairs. It was there. And I was going through the first noble truth. It was very insightful because I had never thought in that manner. But a couple of thoughts popped up as I read the first noble truth. And they were in contrast of it. The first one is joy and sorrow. The life keeps toggling between these two, right? So if the joy is momentarily, so is the sorrow. And secondly, there is a thought that everything happens for a good reason, which somehow implies that good exists or joy somehow exists. So is the second thought just a fallacy? I mean, which is never going to be true, or we are just making it up to consolidate ourselves? And it can be kept in another way, like why only dukkha is noble truth, right? Why joy cannot be? Because both are, anatta, you can say, and anicca.
Yes. If I've understood your question, well, the Buddha framed the Four Noble Truths as a kind of medical diagnosis. And so that it's, in a way, it's the unstated sort of preface to the Four Noble Truths is, if there is an ultimate reality, why are we all not totally blissful all of the time? If there is an ultimate reality, then why, if that's the case, that's the fundamental nature of what we are and what all things are, why are we not blissful and peaceful and free all the time? So that's a kind of unspoken preamble, I would say. And so he starts off, idang dukkang, there is dukkha. So rather than going into metaphysics and trying to explain, well, the nature of the universe is like this and like that, he says, okay, the fact is that we are not blissfully happy all of the time. So let's just start there. So like, why do doctors exist? Because people get ill. If people didn't get ill, there wouldn't be any doctor. I'm sure there's quite a few doctors here. Well, I suspect there's a few doctors here. So doctors wouldn't exist if we didn't get ill. So that that's where the Buddha starts, rather than a metaphysical position of like, there is the ultimate reality. And then actually his first dialogue was with the ascetic Upaka, and Luang Por Sumedho often talks about this. The Buddha's first Dhamma talk was a failure, because he met Upaka on the road, and Upaka stopped him and said, wow, you're so radiant, you're so peaceful, you're so serene. You must have had some kind of great experience. And the Buddha said, yes, I'm fully enlightened. In fact, I'm the only enlightened being in the whole world. And Upaka says, oh, really? So it sounds like you've realized the deathless. And the Buddha said, yes, that's correct. Yeah, and I'm the only being in the universe who's realized this at the moment. And so Upaka said, well, good for you, friend. Yes, have a nice day. And he wagging his head, he goes off by a different path. Like, oh, this guy is crazy. So the Buddha realized, he's a very quick learner. Okay, declaration didn't work. There is the ultimate reality, and I embody it. Like, fine, good for you. Meet a few people on the street like that, so we kind of, okay, have a nice day. I'm going, I'm going down this path. And so the Buddha said, well, that didn't work. Declaration didn't work. Okay, let's start at the other end of the spectrum, dukkha. So we are not totally happy all of the time. Why is that? And so the and so that's why people don't go to the doctor because they're perfectly healthy. They go to the doctor because they have an ailment, they've got a symptom. And so the people don't want to be cured of joy or happiness, but rather it's the dukkha, where things are out of balance, out of order, when they're painful. That then we get the entry point is, hey, I need to do something about this. If we're comfortable and happy, it's like, often it's not always the case, but people who are rich and comfortable and usually unreflective say, life is great. What, why all this talk about dukkha? I'm really happy. Things are great. What could go wrong? And which is a kind of deluded deva-like state. So the Buddha started with dukkha because it's that in order to help people to awaken, that's where people's attention goes. Like, okay, something's not right here. Why am I not happy? What's going wrong? Well, and then what can I do about this? Where's this coming from, and what can I do about it? So what was the second part of your question?
So basically, it was the same thing. It was about this quote. Basically, people say that everything happens for a good reason.
Mm-hmm.
So if we say dukkha is the noble truth, while joy is not. So I was coming from there only. So in that case, is it just a fallacy? Basically, the statement which will never come true, because joy never exists. So everything cannot happen for a good reason. Everything happens for what I would say for a bad reason. So that was the point. But I think that comes from there only.
Well, just to go to that when people make that kind of a statement, everything happens for a reason, there can be a kind of fatalistic. Do you know the word fatalistic? Like the things are it was meant to be. And so I have a little campaign against the "it was meant to be" thesis. That because sometimes people make that assumption that it was meant to be, or that karma is sort of a fixed pattern. But karma, action and its result, is only one factor in what goes to make this the present moment experience. So what you have in Buddha Dhamma, it's not all put together in one single package, but what are called the 5 niyamas. The 5 niyama is the word for law. There's a few lawyers here. I know. The 5 niyamas, and karma niyama is only one of those. The action and personal action and its results is only one of those. So the first is utu niyama, which is like the laws of physics and chemistry. Like none of us were involved in inventing gravity, right? But we all experience it. We all feel the weight of our body pulled to the earth. We feel it. It affects our life all the time, every day, but it's not personal. So that's part of what we experience is utu niyama, the laws of physics and chemistry. Then the second one is bija niyama, the laws of biology. So we didn't invent the evolutionary process. I didn't invent the eye or the ear or the aerobic respiration. I wasn't involved in that. These things are not personal, but we're totally affected by the biology of our existence. The third one is kamma niyama. So that's action based on choice, and it's the effects that come from those choices, intended action. So that's where the Buddha's teaching focuses. That's where we can make a difference. We're affected by physics and chemistry and biology, but action and its result is where we can make a difference. The fourth one is citta niyama, the way the mind works. None of us, we didn't invent memory or imagination or perception, how these mental factors work. And then the fifth one is dhamma niyama, which is at the fundamental structure of reality at its most basic. I think the nature of the unconditioned and its relationship to the conditioned. This is not personal, but we are all, our lives are deeply affected and influenced by those other niyamas. So the Buddha's teaching focuses on kamma niyama. That's where a difference can be made, but we're affected. What goes to make this moment is a blend of all those different influences. That's not sounding too complicated, and that the emphasis on the Four Noble Truths is like that's where we can make the most of our life. We can't change the weight of the electron, or the way that memory works or imagination works, but where we can make a difference is in action and its results, and that's not preordained, that's not fixed. And so the Buddha's teaching is based upon the fact that choices are possible and the choices have real effects, like the karma that leads to the end of karma. By following the Eightfold Path, that's choices that are being made, actions that are being taken. But if they are taken in a skillful way, then they lead to enlightenment. and then the ending of any kind of deluded or distorted motivation, and the result of that is liberation. Time for one more. The final question. If we can get the mic to work. Yeah.
Thank you, Ajahn. My question is about one curiosity I always had. In Abhidhamma Pitak, if I'm not wrong, there is mention of 31 different planes of existence, Manushya Lok, Devlok, etc. So my question is there any scientific or tangible proof that these different 31 planes of existence indeed exist?
Well, there are people who say they've visited them, and certain physicists are fond of the idea of parallel universes. So there's that might be a case might be made for that. The tangible proof is hard to pin down, but personally, I've never had a problem with the idea of other realms of existence. It's made perfect sense to me. I've never had the experience of visiting them, or having visions of them, but the idea of them doesn't bother me. Yeah, just as with a number of physicists and people who read popular science, the idea of parallel universes, well, even movies. On the plane coming here, there was this movie called Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I think that's the right title. So that multiverse of many universes all living, all existing in parallel with each other. The different planes of existence, I don't have a problem with the idea of that, but I personally don't have any proof that that's the case. And I'm fond of Buddhist cosmology, and I think there's a lot of meaningful, valuable material that's there in the mythology of the different realms of existence. But just a myth or a story can be meaningful even if it's not true. That even if it didn't actually happen that way, if Rama and Sita didn't actually exist, if the story of Rama and Sita can still have its value, and and can be informative, or the story of the Mahabharata and the Pandava brothers and the great battle in Kurukshetra, whether it happened or not, it's still that we can learn a lot from the story. It's like the great Indian myth that I'm sure all of you sort of grew up hearing and have been influenced by. Even if it never really happened, the story can carry a lot of helpful truths, and so that even if it's those 31 realms are just a fairy tale, they can be a useful fairy tale. Like, we can be a bit too mechanistic about these things and say that I need proof. It must have really happened. Cinderella did not exist. I want her DNA. I want the DNA readout for Cinderella before I'll pay any attention to her story. Puss in Boots. A cat with boots on. Prove it. But it can be a good story, and you can learn useful lessons from Puss in Boots or Mother Goose or Cinderella, or the Indian equivalents, the Panchatantras, filled with all kinds of colorful stories that probably many of you grew up with or teach to your own kids. They're good stories. They're meaningful myths, even if they didn't actually happen. The story can still be valuable. So I'm quite a fan of mythology myself. So let's see, even if it didn't actually happen, you can't get a DNA printout for Rama and Sita. But it's still a good story, a meaningful story, in my opinion. So it's 1:45 now.
There are some more offerings. There are some more offerings as well.
Okay. So, how will we do this? Offerings first? Yes. So we'll bring things to a close now. I understand there's some more offerings that people would like to make. So those offerings can be made now. And there was also a request for some blessings. So both people who are here and people who are distant. So if there are offerings to be made, they can be made first of all. And we'll begin with that. So there was a request for some blessings from Deepti Kedawat, who is a regular here, or at least on Zoom, and is away in Mumbai at the moment. So she couldn't be here physically, but her mother, whose name is Shakun Kedawat, she's the mother of Garima, Pratik, and Deepti. So she asked for blessings for those children of hers, and also another daughter of hers who's called Puja. Thank you. Is also requesting blessings for her family life and well-being for her and her child and her husband. And so we'll include those good people in our blessings for their well-being and whatever is a great benefit for them. Also, the wife of Maitri, is she here at the moment? Well, geography doesn't matter, so don't worry about that. So, but we'll do a special blessing for her because there's an extra retreatant that she's carrying. So that she is expecting a child. So we'll do the Angulimala Purita for her, which is one of the blessings that we do, which is particularly for expectant mothers. So we'll offer that for her. What's your wife's name? Tejasvini. So her and her passenger. We'll offer blessings then for all of you good people. We'll chant some of our Purita, just a few. And can you do the Aradhana? Yeah. And so this is also an opportunity for you to spread good blessings, good wishes, loving kindness to each other in appreciation for the support you have provided for each other during this weekend.
Aitavanametam sameta bhadanta avikita chitta paritam bharantu Sagge kame cha rupe girisikharatate chantalikhe vimane Ipe rathe cha game tarvanagahane gehavatthum hi khete Umma याचयन्तु देवा जलथलविस्मे यथा गन्धपनागा Ekthanta santikeyan munivara vachanang sadhavo me swantu Dhamma savanakalo ayam bhadanta Dhamma savanakalo ayam bhadanta Dhamma savana kalo ayam bhadanta.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami, dhammang saranang gacchami, sanghang saranang gacchami, dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami, dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami, dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami, tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami, tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami, tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Yo cakumamo amalapagado samang wabuddho sugato vimuto mara sambasa vinnimo chayando bhape sikema janatang vinayang bodhang varandang sirasa namami lokat sanata chavinaya kanjatande jasade jaya siddhi hotu sabhan taraya chavina samendu dhammo dajoyo viyata sasatu dase silo katsa visuddhi magang niyaniko dhammadara sadari sadavaho santikaro suchinno dhammang varandang sirasa namami moha pandalang upasandadahang tande jasade jayasi hotu sabandaraya chavina samendu sadammasena sugatanugoyo loka sambhavo bhakile sanjeta sando sayang san tinniyo jako jasawa kata dhammang viditang karoti sangang varandang sirasa namami buddha nubodang sammasila diteng tande jasade jaya siddhi hotu saban taraya chavin samendo asevana cha bhalanang bandita nanja sevana puja jambu janiyanang eta mangalamutamang bhatirupade sawaso cha bhumbe cha kata punyata atasamma panidi cha heta mangalamu tamang bahusa chasi pancha vinayo chasase keto subhasita chaya vacha hetama galamutamang mata pitopa tanang bodhadara sasangaho anakula chakamanda hetama galamutamang danan chada Macharya Chanyatakana Chasangaho Anavajanika Manieta Mangalamu Tamangarati Virati Papa Majapana Chasanyamo Apamado Chadamme Sueta Mangalamu Tamangaravo Chaniwa Tocha Sandati Chakata Yuta Kalena Dhamma Savanang Eta Mangalamu Tamangandi Chasovacha Sata Samanananjada Sanankalena Dhammasaka Chaheta Galamutamang tapo cha brahmacharya chaharya sa chanadasanang nibbana chakiriya chaheta Galamutamang putatsalo kadamme hichitang yatsanakam bhatiyasokang virajang kemang etama Galamutamang etadisa nikatawana sabatamapar Chitta sabataso tinga chandidandesa mangalamutamande Karaniya mata kusalena yandang sa tang badang abhisame chasako ujo chasuacho chat samudu anatimani sandu sako jasumaro jaha vakicho jasa lahukavoti santindriyo chanipako jaha pagabo Kule suananugido nachakodang samachare kinchiena vinyubare umbhavadayong sukino wake mino hondu sabe sata bhavandu sukitata yeke chipana bhuta titasa Varavahana sadigawa ye mahandawa majima rasakahanukatula ditawa ye chadita ye chandure vasandiya vidure bhutavasam pavesiva sabesata bhavandu sukitata paro para nikubeta natima nyeta kata chinang ginjibaya rosana patika sanyana nyamanya sadukami chayamata yata niyang bhutang ayusa kaputamanurake ewa pisababute suma nasambhavaye aparimanang metanjasambalo kasming manasambhavaye aparimanang udammado chatiriyang chahasambadang averang asapatang ditanjarang niseno asayano yavata savigata medo etang sading adi taya brahma metang viharang indamahudi tenjanupagamasi lavadasanena sampano kame Vinaya gedang nahi jatu gabasayang punarete Yatohang bhagini ariyaya jatiya jato nabhijanami sanchichapanang jivita voropeta tenasa chena sotite hotu so tikambasa yatohang bhagini ariyaya jatiya jato na Vijanami sanchichapana jivita voropeta tena sachena sotite hotu soti gambasa yatohang bhagini ariyaya jatiya jato nabija nami sanchichapanang jivita voropeta tena sa Chena sotite hotu soti gambasa dukhambata chaninduka bayapata chanibaya sokapata chani soka hondu sabe pipani no etavata Amhehi sambarang bunya sambarang sabe devanumo dandu saba sambhati seriya danang darandu sadayasi langrakandu sambanda bhavana birata honduga chandude vatagata Sabe Buddha Balapata Pachekananjayang Balang Arahandananjate Chena Rakhang Dami Saba So Mahakaruniko Nato Hita Yasaba Paninang Puretwa Barami Saba Pato Sambodhimu Tamang Etena Sa Chawajena Hotute Chayamangalang Jayando Bodhiyamule Sakyanang Nandiwarano Ewa Toang Vichayim Hohi Chayatsu Jayama Gale Aparajitapa Lange Sise Patavi Pokare Abhiseke Saba Buddhananga Gapato Pamo Tatisunakatang Suma Kalang Supambatang Suhotitang Sukano Sumoho Tochasuyetang Brahmachari Supada Kinang Kayakam Vacha kamang bada kinang mano kamang panindite pandakina nikat vanala bandade padakine. I wish you all well. And I express my gratitude to Anish, who is not here at the moment. I'm sure doing many useful things to help everything work smoothly, and also for the team who helped to bring this all together, those who helped to look after Dhammarama here in Delhi, also the IT team, audiovisual fellows helping to keep everything connected with those who are not physically here, and everyone who's provided the food offerings that everyone has appreciated during this time, and every other way that people have joined together to make this a blessed and beneficial occasion. So I wish you all well, and that's the end of my side of it.
Maybe we all pay respects to that. Right.